Good morning, students. Welcome to today's lecture. The topic for today's discussion is primary and secondary oral mucosal lesions. The learning outcomes for this topic includes to differentiate primary and secondary oral mucosal lesions clinically. Before we begin with the topic as general, first let us know what are primary lesions and what are secondary lesions. The term primary lesion is used to describe a lesion as it first appears. A secondary lesion results from an alteration of primary lesion either in the natural course of the disease or as a result of manipulation or treatment. So basically a primary lesion is one which at the time of evaluation, clinical evaluation, appears the same way as it first appeared. That means the initial presentation of a lesion is referred to as primary. Most lesions which are primary or examples for a primary lesion includes a macule. However, on the other hand, a secondary lesion is one which on clinical evaluation shows an appearance which differs from the first appearance of its lesion. So there is an alteration in that particular lesion and it has shown some changes from its initial presentation to its current presentation, such that it is referred to as a secondary lesion. A scar is an example of a secondary lesion which initially would have been an ulcer which due to its natural course of healing has converted into a scar. So I hope this explanation is clear and you will be able to identify primary and secondary lesions. Knowledge of this primary and secondary lesion is important because while we are evaluating a lesion, it will help us to determine the clinical differential diagnosis more accurately, because when we know that this is how a lesion appears primarily or this is evolution from a different state, we will be knowing that lesion better and help in the diagnosis of a particular lesion. So let's begin with the various terminologies which are designated under primary and secondary lesions. We have already studied about these terminologies before as part of our assignment under journal terminologies. This we have conducted in the Google Classroom and all of you have submitted the assignments related to that. I have also uploaded a PDF which will be helpful for evaluating for studying the same topic. You may refer to the same PDF for studying this topic as well. All this material will be covered in that PDF. So let's begin with macule first. It is characterized as a circumscribed flat area of discoloration on the skin or mucosa and is less than 10 mm or 1 cm in diameter. Macules occur in the same plane as that of the skin. So this is a flattened lesion. It is not elevated from the surrounding oral mucosa and it can be of any size. But generally the macules which are benign in nature will generally be less than 1 cm in dimension. Examples for macule will include oral melanotic macule, amalgam tattoo. A point to remember here is a macule as a primary oral lesion can be seen in benign lesions. So such lesions will initially present as a macule and at the time of evaluation also are macular in nature. So there is no alteration in its form. However, another melanotic lesion, that is melanoma, which is a malignant lesion, may have initially occurred as a macule during its earlier stages. However, in due course of time, the particular macule would have turned into a nodule as a result of proliferation of cells, which is a characteristic of a malignant lesion, and then there is a change from a macule to a nodule. So this is an example of a secondary lesion. So it's important to differentiate between benign and malignant lesions because the treatment varies and overall we will be able to treat effectively the lesion. So oral melanotic macule is a commonly occurring pigmented lesion of the oral cavity. These lesions generally occur on the lower lip, are more common in the lower lip, and presents as multiple or solitary macular pigmented lesions. So here you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pigmented macules which are 1 cm or less in dimension and they are quite flat in nature. Another example of a macular lesion which presents as a primary lesion is the amalgam tattoo. Amalgam tattoos are generally as a result of dislodgement or integration of the fragments of amalgam within the oral mucosa. These lesions generally appear following an amalgam restoration. As you can see in this image, there is an amalgam restoration in the premolar. So the adjoining mucosa might have there might have been an implantation of the alloy during the cementation or during the restoration procedure, and over in due course of time this has become a macular lesion. So amalgam tattoo is an example of a macular lesion as a primary lesion. Next we'll move on to some lesions which are not flattened in nature, however they are elevated from the adjoining mucosa. These are referred to as papules or papular lesions. So papule is known as a superficial, elevated, solid, circumscribed lesion that is less than 10 mm or 5 mm, basically less than 1 cm in diameter, and may be of any color. These papular lesions may be attached to the skin or mucosa by a stalk or a firm base. So papules are basically elevated lesions which are elevated from the surrounding mucosa. Here in this image you can see multiple papular lesions which are more or less than 1 cm in dimension on the buccal mucosa as well as also on the tongue. Common examples for papular lesions include wart, squamous papilloma, parulis, Fordyce's granules. These papules may be presenting as single or multiple lesions in the oral cavity. Knowledge of these common presentations will generally help us to identify the differential diagnosis more accurately. Fordyce's granule is an example for papular lesions, lesions which shows primary papular presentation. As you can see here, the buccal mucosa shows numerous pinpoint or small papular presentations, and these are yellowish in color, and these are classic presentation of what we call as Fordyce's granule. Fordyce's granule is a normal physiological alteration. Some people do not recognize it as a lesion because it does not cause any symptoms or pain to the patient. So the presentation is basically because of the presence of sebaceous glands within the oral mucosa. Normally sebaceous glands are seen as skin appendages, so they are not present within the oral mucosal region, but sometimes due to alteration we may encounter such sebaceous glands within the mucosa, and in such instances they present as small papular presentations which are somewhat yellowish in color. Squamous papilloma on the other hand generally presents as a singular papular presentation, and because of proliferation of epithelial cells, mucosal cells, and it presents as a singular papular presentation. Next is another elevated lesion which we refer to as a plaque. Plaque is a superficial, slightly raised solid lesion which is circumscribed. These are generally greater than 5 mm to 1 centimeter, as opposed to papule. Papules are also elevated lesions. Plaque are also elevated lesions, but the size of, we designate a lesion as plaque when they are more than 1 centimeter in size. So they appear as broad flat top like a plateau, or they show a pasted on appearance. Here you can see in the image an elevated lesion which is elevated from the surrounding mucosa, whitish in color. It's a keratotic lesion and it is greater than 1 centimeter in size. So any lesion which appears like this, we refer to it as a plaque. Plaques can also be formed by coalescence of numerous papules. So papular lesions may be the initial presentation of the lesion, and later they may coalesce to form a plaque. So in such cases the plaque becomes a secondary lesion. So basically, to summarize before the point which we discussed before, a primary lesion is the same presentation as its initial presentation, whereas a secondary lesion is a different presentation from its initial presentation because there is some alteration in the presentation of the lesion. So various examples of lesions which present as plaque include leukoplakia, lichen planus, melanoma. But melanoma may initially appear as a plaque, as we discussed before, as a macule or as a plaque as well, and later they become nodular and more aggressive. Leukoplakia is one of the most important lesions which we need to know and which presents as a plaque. It's a pre-malignant or potentially malignant disorder and which has the potential to develop into malignancy. So the leukoplakias generally present as a keratotic white lesions and have a plaque-like presentation. So knowledge and identification of these plaque-like lesions will help us in segregating the differential diagnosis of a lesion. This is an example of another plaque-like lesion, and it will show some fine white striae in the periphery. So this is a lichen planus, the plaque type of lichen planus. Lichen planus generally presents as in the reticular form, but some forms of lichen planus will show large flattened elevated areas which are elevated from the surrounding mucosa. So this is a plaque type of lichen planus. Then we have certain lesions which present as nodular presentation. So these are also elevated lesions, but they are solid elevated lesions, and they extend deep into the dermis or the mucosa, and the epidermis is mobile over it. So even though these are extensions above the layer and they extend deep into the mucosa, above the epithelial layer, and they extend deep into the dermis, there will be some mobility because it is not fixed. Fixation is a property of a malignancy, and generally nodular lesions which present as benign will not show such fixation and will be mobile. So overall there is no specific size for the nodule, but most of the nodules which we encounter in our routine practice will be less than 1 centimeter or 10 millimeter in diameter. So more commonly the nodules will be above the skin or mucosa and can be detected by palpation. Sometimes they may be at level, or sometimes they may be depressed also within the skin, but they will be firm on palpation and you can easily segregate them from the adjoining normal mucosa. As you can see here, we have a nodular lesion with the sessile base. Some may have a pedunculated base as well. Most commonly, or more commonly, the nodular presentations in oral cavity are seen for benign mesenchymal tumors, benign connective tissue tumors such as lipoma or neuroma, and we can also see hyperplastic lesions which present as nodular presentation. One of the most common hyperplastic lesion appearing in the oral cavity is the pyogenic granuloma. This is also clinically referred to as epulis or vascular epulis. These are nodular, pedunculated or sessile lesions which generally occur on the gingiva. So the nodular presentation is a primary presentation for this lesion. Sometimes the secondarily these nodules may show superficial ulcerations or erosions. This may be the secondary presentation, but knowing the primary presentation will help us identify this pathology. Traumatic fibroma or irritational fibroma is another common example for a nodular lesion. These generally occur on the buccal mucosa along the line of occlusion or at the commissures. These are generally secondary to the chronic irritation or trauma from the occlusion and results in proliferation of fibrous tissue within the mucosa. So this proliferation results in elevated appearance, a nodular appearance, and histopathologically we diagnose such lesions as focal fibrous hyperplasia. Clinically we diagnose it as traumatic fibroma or irritational fibroma. Then we have certain group of lesions which present as vesicles. Then there is an alternate terminology called bulla, and combined we refer to these lesions as vesiculobullous lesions. Based on this appearance, it becomes easier to draw out the differential diagnosis. But before, let us find out what a vesicle is. So vesicle is nothing but a blister. We know what a blister is. It's a fluid-filled sac-like area. So these are superficial, raised, circumscribed blister form lesions that are generally 5 mm or 10 mm in diameter and are fluid filled. You can see here numerous small pinpoint fluid filled spaces are there on the palate and the buccal mucosa. These will be generally less than 1 cm in diameter. The fluid present within these vesicles may be clear, serous, hemorrhagic or purulent. Such vesicles are commonly seen in allergic reactions such as allergy to latex. Vesicles are also a common presentation of various viral infections of the oral cavity, most commonly herpetic viral infections or herpes simplex viral infection, herpetic gingivostomatitis, primary herpetic gingivostomatitis generally presents as vesicles and which later rupture and give ulcerated areas. So most of these vesicles are primary presentations, and at the later presentation we might find ulcerative or erosive areas. Herpes zoster or chickenpox infections will also show vesicle formation. Then we have another form of vesicles which are slightly larger in dimension, generally more than 5 to 10 mm in dimension, or we can say more than 1 centimeter in dimension. These are also fluid filled, they are superficial, so they are elevated, they are raised, and they are circumscribed. Blister form lesions. They are filled with clear, serous, hemorrhagic or purulent fluid. On the skin, bulla is commonly associated with burns. So a burn victim will generally show the formation of a bulla. These are dense fluid filled vesicles which are sometimes painful as well. They can also result as a form of frictional trauma and contact allergic dermatitis. Intraorally, bulla can be seen in various autoimmune disorders such as pemphigus, pemphigoid, Stevens-Johnson syndrome. Generally, the blisters which we see in pemphigus vulgaris, these are smaller than 1 centimeter in dimension, and we refer to them as vesicle. However, in case of pemphigoid, we have somewhat like this larger and dense fluid filled vesicles which are generally 1 or more than 1 centimeter in diameter, and we refer to them or designate them as bulla. Then we have some lesions which show erythematous areas, and we refer or designate them as erosive lesions. We have a list of erosive lesions in the oral cavity like pemphigus, lichen planus, erythema multiforme. Remember that the erosion is a secondary appearance in pemphigus, which primarily shows as a vesicle. Lichen planus may primarily appear as a erosive lesion. Erythema multiforme may or may not show erosive lesions primarily, but the final presentation will definitely be erosive. So erosion is described as a red, shallow, moist, slightly depressed lesion that often results from a broken vesicle or bulla, epithelial breakdown or trauma. So when it occurs because of trauma or epithelial breakdown, these are generally primary. However, when it occurs from a vesicle or bulla, these are secondary presentations. So erosion should not be mistaken for ulcers, which are covered with fibrin and are usually yellow, although erosions may develop into ulcers. So basically, erosion and ulcer, even though it appears similar, there is one main important difference with that, and we should be aware of it. So healing rarely results in scarring because the basal layer of epithelium is intact. So in case of erosion, only the superficial epithelial layers, that is the cell layers from spinous or intermedium or superficial layers are lost, but the basal cell layer is intact, such that the underlying connective tissue is reflected or is observed as a reddened area or a red area. However, in case of ulcer, the damage is extensive such that the entire epithelium is lost. So there is a continuous discontinuity in the epithelium such that the underlying connective tissue is exposed. So in case of such ulcers, there is formation of fibrin network which is then converted into granulation tissue such that it results in healing. So in case of erosion, there is no requirement for granulation tissue formation since the basal cell layer is intact, and epithelialization will proceed normally, and there will be no scarring as well. So remember the various lesions which presents as erosive lesions, and knowing this will help you in the differential diagnosis. Then we have a group of lesions which are referred to as pustule. These are similar to vesicles, but when they are filled with pus, it is referred to as pustule. So purulent vesicles are pustules. They are usually creamy white in appearance. Sometimes they may be yellowish or greenish in color. Pustules are generally less than 1 centimeter in dimension. So pustules are seen in herpes zoster, which will eventually ulcerate and cause intense pain. Then we'll discuss about ulcer. Ulcer is a common clinical presentation within the oral cavity. Most common reason for ulcer of the oral cavity is a traumatic ulcer. So ulcer refers to a loss of continuity of the epithelium. Alternatively, we can describe it as a breach or loss of continuity of the epithelium. The center of the lesion is initially red. Sometimes the ulcers appear red in the beginning, but then later it turns gray-white because of the formation of fibrin clot. Periphery will show a erythematous halo or a erythematous ring-like area. Ulcers can be further classified based on their depth, border, shape, margin, and the tissue, the type of tissue on its base. Knowledge of these individual aspects of an ulcer helps us a great deal in determining the final diagnosis. Overall, ulcers can be superficial or deep. Superficial ulcers have less than 3 mm depth. Deep ulcers have more than 3 mm depth. In terms of shape, they can be divided into symmetric or asymmetric forms based on the regularity of the borders. Margin of ulcers can be smooth or crater-like. All this symmetry and margins, knowledge of these will help us to identify whether they are benign or they are reactive or they are malignant. So commonly in the oral cavity, we can encounter ulcers as traumatic ulcers or recurrent after stomatitis. We will be discussing about these topics in detail in a future chapter. Then we have hemorrhagic lesions, which are designated as purpura. They refer to bleeding into the skin or mucosa that results in a violet or purple discoloration that varies based on its duration and does not blanch on pressure. If there is a vascular lesion which is filled with fluid, there will be a blanching that is seen, a large vascular lesion. However, because here there is bleeding into the mucosal area, the connective tissue, there will be no blanching on pressure. Purpura can be further divided into petechiae, which are small areas of hemorrhage, or ecchymosis, which are larger areas of hemorrhage. So petechiae is defined as tiny 1 mm to 2 mm pinpoint non-blanchable purpuric macules resulting from the rupture of small blood vessels, and they present as red, purple or brown in color. So a rupture of capillaries within the connective tissue in the mucosa will result in numerous 1 to 2 mm pinpoint macules, which are referred to as petechiae. Ecchymosis, on the other hand, are larger non-blanching purpuric macules which are greater than 3 mm in dimension, and because of the extravasation of blood into the mucosa. The ecchymosis over time will change its color from red to blue-black to brown or green before fading away. So these are transitionary lesions, and knowledge of them will help us to avoid unnecessary treatment. Taking a proper history of the patient will also be an important aspect for such lesions. So I hope we have covered all the important terminologies which are designated as primary and secondary lesions of the oral cavity. I request all to kindly revise the assignment on general terminologies and correlate it with this lecture, and remember all these points, because even though this is quite a boring topic, knowledge of all the terminologies will help us to understand individual pathology when we learn them separately. So with this, I'll conclude today's lecture. Thank you everyone for your patient listening, and bye. Goodbye.